go under these houses. They're open on the sides.
I would like to know what the criteria for you don't have to do it if it's too hard. Like,
How do you prove that?
yeah, everything's too hard.
Oh, like you pick up the bundle of cellulose. Oh, it's too heavy.
Yeah.
There are roofing nails sticking down.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, a weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Digital Brand Manager Rob Wadsack,
Hello.
Editor Justin Fink,
Hello.
and Producer Jeff Rose.
Howdy.
Please email your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Well, thanks for meeting with me, guys. It's great to have you on the show, Justin.
It's been a while.
The audience has been clamoring for you to be on.
No, they have not.
Let's launch right into this. So last we talked, you had purchased a dishwasher, but I'm not sure you had put it in the opening. You had made the hole for it, and this was resultant from like your dishwasher spilling water all over your kitchen floor.
Yeah, I can't.
There's no simple way for a dishwasher to fail, right? It's like a water heater. It doesn't just stop working, it explodes.
But at least mine had sort of like this. You know how like things have some features that tell you when they're starting to fail. Like
Yes.
That my dishwasher, when the bubbling vinyl coating on all of the racks on the inside started happening, I think that's probably when it's getting close to it.
Isn't the printer in our office have some kind of weird message to like nearing end of life or something?
Imaging plate or something, yes. And it's been like that for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I mean, my very responsible daughter, who she's like the parent in the house, she started a change collection for the new dishwasher fund before we even bought this one, because we were like, yeah, we're going to get new kitchen countertops. She's like, you should get a new dishwasher first.
It's kind of sad, Rob.
Yeah.
How much money did your 13-year-old daughter raise for this
Well,
cause?
we kind of ignored that because there really wasn't enough money in there to even like
She
pay
could
the
buy
tax on the dishwasher.
Buy some rinse agent.
But it was one of the most challenging projects I've done in a long time. There was just like,
come on.
No, not challenging. Like, it wasn't difficult. It's just that each step of the project was about 3 times as hard as I expected it to be. Even though I always go into projects saying, as long as you know things are going to fail, it shouldn't be.
It's
a surprise.
not as upsetting, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't be a surprise. So, but it was amazing when I finally got it done, and I actually have a machine that actually washes dishes instead of just rinses them.
How long does it take?
What was the snags you hit?
So, well, I mean, it was, some of them weren't snags as much as unintended additional projects, like the fact that the
snag?
Yeah, no, but like, I think a snag is like, I can't get my hand in there to get this wire.
Oh, you're
connected.
talking like physically getting snagged.
But there was, a 3/4 of an inch gap in the wall where there should have been drywall contacting the sheathing and the floor, subfloor. I had to fill that in. There was an electrical box.
That's an easy place to tape drywall.
Yeah, that was easy. There was an electrical box because the wire was too short. There was an electrical box just sitting wrapped in duct tape underneath the dishwasher to make the connection to the new longer wire. So I had to knock a hole in the wall and find where the wire was coming from to make a new wire connection and put a new box in the wall. It says it would fit a 24-inch opening, and my opening was 24 1/4. And once I put the little rubber gaskets around the whole thing, I had to practically take a pry bar to get it in the even bigger space. And then the one of the most annoying things was that the electrical box on the actual dishwasher, everything else about this dishwasher I love, but the electrical box was like, it was a flat plate on the dishwasher that had a hole in it, and then you had this like flimsy sheet metal electrical box that you had to shove all the stuff into a ball and then slide
too small.
over.
They're always too small.
And slide over. I actually had to take my multi-tool and make some notches in that box to clear parts of the dishwasher that it didn't clear.
Immediately when you talk about dishwasher snags, I go to somebody who remodeled the kitchen and put flooring in front of it, so you can't get it out anymore.
Yeah,
it makes me want to just scream when that happens.
Yeah,
Like,
well, sometimes it can be like
idiots.
2 inches of like tile and subfloor, and no, I had done that, but only by a 3/8 of an inch. So I just screwed the little feet up and it slid right over it. But
So how did you have laminate countertops, right?
yeah, we just were.
So you just screwed it to the bottom of the countertop.
Yeah. It came with screws to that, and then the only other thing was there was a 3/8 inch flared copper tube going directly to the dishwasher, and it wouldn't have matched up with the connection on the new dishwasher. So
Yeah, that's a special.
How
that's
old
a
was
special
this dishwasher?
connection.
You had a
probably like
flared
the 80s.
soft copper?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so then I went to the
I hate working with those flare connections.
well, I couldn't because I couldn't.
You can't. There's no way to get it connected to the dishwasher.
Yeah,
right?
unless I went and bought or borrowed one of those flare tools and just made a
Right.
new connection. But I was like, I'm going to do compression fitting, and you go to the aisle in Home Depot where there's like a billion compression, different size brass fittings, and you're just looking at like hundreds of them on this plaque on the wall, and you're like, which one is going to?
So you
Yeah.
know the
Work
easy solution to all these problems is
Yeah.
to get a dishwasher supply line that has the dishwasher connection and the right angle plumbing fitting, brass fitting you need, and it just screws to a shutoff valve.
I mean, when I
Yeah.
encounter that kind of stuff, it's out with the old. Like,
Yeah,
I
just
trace
get
it all the way
rid of
back
that.
to the root, yank out that
Well, that's
soft
the
copper,
thing,
and
is like
start over.
That I cut the soft copper back and then put the compression fitting under my sink because the 3/8 copper was soldered directly to an old style valve that went to the fed the sink. So I would have had to go down to the water heater and turn off the water.
Yeah, I
for
would
the-
have done that.
Yeah,
Absolutely would have done
I
that.
almost did that, but I had hit so many other things. It was already like 3 hours over the limit I wanted to spend on this, and
There's a couple specialty products that makes like installing a dishwasher easier. And one is like if you have conventional supply valves with a compression fitting on the top side, right? You can buy a T that screws onto there and then receives the supply that goes up to the faucet, and it supplies the dishwasher without cutting any pipes or anything.
Yeah.
And assuming the shutoff valve works, it's a pretty easy way to put new stuff in.
well, you know what I did? I mean, along those same lines, when I put my new refrigerator in that had ice maker in it, and the old one didn't, luckily the water line to the sink ran directly underneath in the basement underneath where the fridge was.
Yep.
I just drilled a hole in the floor. I went down there. I just cut the pipe in half, stuck one of those shark bite connectors on it, and put the connection in a little plastic box like you have in the wall for one of those
Right.
dishwasher
Yeah.
connections. Just screwed to the side of a floor joist, and I was done in like 15 minutes.
Yeah, but way better than a saddle valve. You have to pierce the pipe, and
You're not
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
use those. They fail inevitably.
they fail immediately in my case.
I mean,
It seems like such a great idea to poke a hole
know.
in a pipe and then try and control it.
Right.
How-
With
what
a
could-
rubber washer.
What could go wrong?
but I know a lot of people love building simpler slab-on-grade houses for the minimizing of the cost and work, but I love having a basement underneath my
With the pipes
house.
exposed.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That is a big plus of like
Yeah, I mean, I don't like going down there, but I like having it when I need it.
Yeah.
You've been doing plumbing too.
I've been doing all sorts of stuff.
Well, lay it on me, man.
I replaced the roof on my porch.
With what?
Well, it's an illegally low slope porch roof. I think it's like a 1 in 12. I mean,
And it had asphalt shingles on it?
it had like roll roofing on it.
Okay.
But it just was it was still having problems with leaking where the roll roofing hit the asphalt shingles. Like it just wasn't enough water movement to really.
So this is like an extension of your main roof.
Right.
And so
It's-
the shingles come down to a point and then it's roll roofing from
right.
okay.
And you try and integrate the two. You try and tuck up under with membranes and flashing and kind of. But it's like when you get enough rain or you get enough snow, it's
backing
finding
up.
a way in.
Yeah.
So I just switched to EPDM membrane and I bought it. I bought big enough sheets that I only had to have one big seam.
Did you buy the self-stick kind?
No.
So you bought glue
Yep.
that you put on directly on the roof sheathing?
Yep.
Wow, this is
Did you have to
fascinating.
do new sheathing to have it adhere or no?
Yeah, I did. I put down a layer of what did I use? I must have used 1/2-inch plywood. It had to be 1/2-inch
just
plywood.
to
CDX.
create a clean surface.
Yeah, I mean, I I went through the route of, hey, will this stick to that? And I talked to some manufacturers, and it was just like for the cost of adding a new layer of plywood for the peace of mind of I'm done
You
touching
don't
this
want to
roof.
do this
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, it's been such a hassle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put down new 1/2-inch plywood, and then I did the contact adhesive. You apply it to.
Does it stink like chemicals?
I got low VOC. Well, that's the interesting thing is I bought low VOC adhesive, and it still was like I got to put a respirator on.
So when my first job after college, I stumbled into this weird commercial roofing job in my hometown, and the guy wasn't a builder. He was just like one of those like guys who had all these weird little side businesses everywhere, and he had like me and these two other misfits up on roofs putting patching EPDM, and he was cheap, so he didn't want to buy the right solvents and stuff like that. So we always had like a can of gasoline with like a rag. And
It's so dangerous.
Well, so I've never done EPDM, and I'm not talking about this in an effort to sound like an expert. Somebody should listen to my advice. I knew I'd never done it. I could have hired it. I just like to learn new stuff, and it seemed like a low.
The stakes are low.
Yeah, the stakes are low. It's not an insulated. It's not even an indoor space of any kind. It's just an open porch. And so I tried to do my homework, went up there and I did it. It came out fine. Everything's nice and tight. But so the adhesive, if somebody's never done this in the audience, it's like putting like a laminate countertop together.
Contact cement.
So you put the cement on the roof deck. You put the same cement on the backside of the membrane. You wait for them both to get tacky. And the way they assess the tackiness is like you should put your finger on it at a 45-degree angle and see if it slides. If it kind of like catches, it's dry enough to go. If it kind of slides under your finger, then you have to wait longer. But they didn't explain why. Like you read this everywhere, like this is the test, and I'm thinking like, because you're messing with this stuff, and you can tell that even if it's not all the way dry, it sticks like hell. So I'm going. So in my head, you're sitting up there breathing the fumes, waiting for because by the time I got to this, it was getting cold, so it slowed down, and so I'm sitting.
So you're
up
waiting
there,
for the solvents to evaporate.
You're waiting for the solvents to evaporate, and I'm going. Okay, it's like 85% dry. There's like a couple little spots here that are still a little slick. I'm going for it because it's gonna stick, right? But then immediately, what I learned was. It bubbles. Yeah, and it's not
because it still has to remove some of that solvent.
Yeah.
See, in my mind, it was like the bubble was you didn't put it down smoothly enough. I never connected the dots of this is why it has to be dry because the bubbles are solvent trying to escape. It doesn't say that, and that's the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy. Like, give me the reason behind the advice so that I know what I'm really supposed to be worried about here.
Well, that's something we even as editors have to think about all the time, or anybody who's not out in the field or dealing with lay people and every day, is that you take things for granted. You understand how something works, and sometimes you really need to talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about it to make sure what you're presenting to them actually is useful.
Right. It would be like if you read on I'll make up an example, like you read on a bottle of Type Bond 2, clamp time is 20 minutes, and in your head you're logically coming to the conclusion that the clamp time 20 minutes minimum is if you don't wait that long, it's going to fall apart. But what if you don't wait that long, it catches on fire? Like that's like give me the what's
going to happen?
I mean, you'd also make the argument, well, Justin, just follow the instructions. But when there's all these variables and you're trying to make it, there's always fudge factor in these things. Yeah.
So that's what the beauty of experience brings you, right? You make all the mistakes, so then you stop making mistakes.
Yeah, and it's the same.
Oh, okay.
I had the same trouble with products for the EPDM because you're buying it from a lot of different, this tape, this membrane, this adhesive. It's not like one company makes it. And a lot of times it'll say, that stupid frustrating language like make sure to cover this tape, the seam tape, with premium acrylic coating or something. And then you're looking around at all the products, you're like, nothing says premium acrylic coating. Yeah. What does this mean? And again, it's not like they go the next step and say, this product hasn't been tested for long term with anything but this is the thing we recommend you use. It's just sort of like make sure you use this, and you're left as a buyer to go, how important is this?
Yeah, well, I mean, you figure the manufacturers, if they don't make the corresponding product, they don't want to be responsible.
Right.
They want to give you as much information as they can to feel like they're doing the right thing.
Right.
But there's so many variables, and this goes.
I disagree. I think they're trying to give you the absolute minimum information that they possibly can, so they are not on the hook for liability.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I meant. I didn't really explain it right, but basically that's like Mike Gerton. We actually have his talk from the summit on our website now. I'll put a link in there. But you were saying, Patrick, that that's what with experience. It used to be a generation ago that you'd get all this experience and the materials wouldn't change in your lifetime. But now the materials are changing every couple of years.
I think that's why builders, in large part, are so hesitant to try new stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Because you don't know.
And I mean, I'm not saying like I went into this, decided Saturday morning I'm doing EPDM. I mean, I went to forums, I read articles where I could, I looked at stuff. It's just that nothing I read, anybody connected those two things of bubbles are from VOCs not being able to dry and escape. Yeah, like that's the connection I was missing.
Yeah, like when I worked in the cabinet shop, if we were putting on a wood veneer that had some permeability, we could possibly get away with putting on earlier. But when you're putting on a
laminate
impermeable layer, it's just like when we think about permeability in like weather barriers, it's like there's nowhere for that solvent to go.
Right, and it's one of those things like you feel like an idiot after, and then you go, so many people have screwed this up, so I don't feel like an idiot.
Does it settle down? Because I mean, theoretically, at least, no.
No.
I thought the plywood might take up the solvent.
I mean, the plywood will absorb the solvent, but at that point, the bond is already screwed up because of the bubble in there.
I mean, I sort of, I might be shooting myself in the foot here, but I sort of also look at it like, well, this is a mistake that really didn't matter
because it's still watertight.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not going to puncture the bubble to pop it and then try and seal it because that seems like
you do that with a blister, not a roof.
I would
you probably shouldn't do that with a blister either.
I would be pissed if I hired somebody and this is what I got. But you can see it from one side of the roof to the other. Bubbles, no bubbles, because it's learning. Got it figured out.
We know Diami listens to the show.
Oh, he's going to be
he's going to be all over us.
Yeah.
But so
briefly, tell me about the. So you took a week's vacation, and instead of going to the beach or the mountains, you tore your bathroom, your shower apart, right?
Yeah, my shower had a little bit of leak in the shower pan, and this was a shower I put in.
How long ago did you put
it was within 5 years, I'd say. And it's not so. I mean, I have to fess up here. Part of it is like it barely had a leak. It was like I was looking for a reason to get rid of the shower because I didn't like how it came out. I had grout joints that were wider than I now want them to be, and I have hard water that I'm also going to be addressing with a water softener. But it just became a nightmare to keep this shower clean.
Yeah.
And so, I just wanted it
better.
I wanted it better. So it became a great justification to pull the trigger. It was enough of a, and granted, when I went to take it apart, it was good and wet. Like the shower pan was pretty well soaked.
If they're leaking, they're wet.
Yeah.
They're
they can hold a lot of water under there.
Yeah.
So I put it back together again, and interestingly enough, I had a liquid membrane.
What kind did you use?
We talked about this before, and I'm trying to remember. It was either Latacrete or Mapai, and I don't remember which one.
What color was it?
It was bluish green.
I think that's Mapai.
Aren't they both that color?
I know, like the green one is the Latacrete. I think the bluish one is the
okay.
Mapai.
That makes sense. I think they sell that at Lowe's, and that's probably where I bought it from.
The Mapai.
Yeah.
And are they all pretty much the same, just like that Red Guard where it's just a liquid that you put down and it dries? And
Boy, people say they are not the same.
Yeah, and I don't blame that membrane, by the way. I think it's just, I don't really even know what the leak was. You can see in the shower I had a single slope to a linear drain, and two of the 12 by 12 tiles, you could see they were slightly dipped in, like they had, I don't know, collapsed under some. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
So, and this time, did you stick with the linear drain again?
No, because that was also part of the reason.
I think
I hated it.
That's a problem.
I hated it.
What did you dislike about it?
It clogged with hair almost, like because you have this linear drain, and then you have the way the grate sits in there. It's kind of sitting up on little feet,
Right.
and the feet catch everything.
I mean, it's
So
kind
you
of
have
like
to take it out constantly to, and so I eventually just ditched the cover, and then I put.
And you have a hole there.
Well, then you have this open drain, but
Yeah.
but I wanted to have this kind of cedar plank in the shower. It was like this little deck in there. It was
How long did it take before that got disgusting?
No, that was fine. that was my favorite part of the shower. It was awesome. It
Oh,
was
yeah?
so comfortable to stand on like a nicely polished little cedar plank, and all the water goes underneath it, and it looks nice and
That
neat
sounds
and clean.
disgusting.
It wasn't. It was so lightweight. You could pop it up and rinse it, and it's no problem. But
If
yeah,
you-
so I
if
went
you're
with a
gonna-
regular Schluter drain. But that was another thing that drove me insane. So I'm decided I'm doing this, and
We should tell folks that Schluter drain works with their shower pan, right?
Right.
And it's got a huge flange on it
Yeah.
that receives the waterproofing membrane.
right, and you can use their shower kit that has like a foam base.
A pre-sloped foam.
Pre-sloped pan made out of foam. I did a mortar bed. But so they sell, I go to Lowe's and I go to Home Depot. Both of them in my area sell Schluter products. So they sell the Schluter Curdy membrane rolls, and they sold one other thing. I think it was like the little corner pieces, but no drain. At both locations, both of these chain stores. And I wanted to be like, I don't even understand why you would buy this membrane unless you could use the drain.
Is the smartest part of the whole thing.
And,
Yeah.
and you cannot use that drain.
I mean, can you
can't-
order it from them or
Yeah, but it's just one of those like, why would you carry half of
It
this
makes
product
no
line?
freaking sense.
in stock?
And
yeah.
I finally found one Home Depot that had a wider array of stuff, but it wasn't like it was out of stock at the ones I was going to.
They
It
just
was
don't stock it.
Like they had half of a system.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
I mean, when
Yeah.
you think about it, think about how many different systems there are in a house and how many different ways there are to do some of those things. And I'm impressed sometimes that you can actually walk into one of those stores and find all the different parts that you need.
There's a lot of
together.
hate in the pro industry for these big box stores, and like people look down there. I think they're amazing.
Well,
I think they're
they're
amazing.
I have mixed feelings. It's not like I'm never going to go there for a lumber package for even a room edition, or you know what I mean. It's just like that's not where you buy that stuff. But like if you need a collection of different things on a weekend, what else are you going to do?
So why do you think you'll never go there for a lumber package?
I just don't trust the people picking it. I don't. They don't have a boom truck that's going to put it on my job site. You know, like that stuff is invaluable.
I know that Home Depot is trying very hard to become a good source for that. They're really upping their pro thing, and I'm not. I've never used them in that capacity, so I have no comment on that. But
I bought 70 12-foot sheets of drywall from them
Yep.
because it was a fantastic price. They arranged for a boom truck to bring it to me.
yeah.
But drywall's drywall. Lumber is not.
You can't. There's no lumber yard I've ever been to that gives me the variety of stuff as a remodeler that I want to get at a big box store where I can grab electrical stuff, tile stuff, plumbing stuff,
Right.
and the tile, and it's
they might be able to get it in, but they won't have it in stock.
right. And I like to browse when it comes to that stuff. I want to go in and look at
The quality.
Look at 4 different garbage disposals and say, like, now I understand. So I get a feel for the differences.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, to Patrick's point, I mean, like, there's a Rings End in my town, and I've been going there for almost 20 years now. So the same guys have been there almost the whole time, and so they recognize me when I go in, and
They know where stuff is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. that place-
Shopping at a pro lumber yard is a joyful experience to me.
Yeah.
I actually go to them to survey what they have in stock in case I need that
Oh,
thing.
for sure.
Yeah.
You just kind of update yourself on
Yeah. What do you
they
got?
offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people, there's a significant amount of pros, I would say most of them, are learning about what products are in their market from their supplier.
Yes,
They're not
absolutely.
cruising the web looking to see if there's a new type of drywall. They're waiting for the countertop display.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other services you can often get at those places because usually they're paired up with a cabinet supplier or even a kitchen designer. But then even like you think about laminated timbers, all the companies that make those usually provide free engineering services that you can access through your local building supply place.
That's another invaluable service, and that's free.
Yeah.
They like do beam sizing and stuff.
Yeah.
And it actually has a stamp on it.
Yeah. I love stamps. Things that I don't have to argue with.
It's just like this is bona fide.
Yeah, done.
We should take some questions before we run out of time here.
If you
One other
insist.
thing. So last night I got an email from you. I never get emails from you at 9 o'clock at night, but you were telling me that we both have a milestone at the company we're celebrating today.
Yeah. Yes.
So how long for you?
15 years. 15-year service award today, which I completely forgot. I got the call from Human Resources like, well, Justin, you probably already know this, but, we're doing service award. I'm like, nope, I didn't know that.
I had no idea, too.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
How many years are you?
10.
10.
And Rob's
Five.
got 5. So
5 for me.
everybody at this table is getting an award.
Yay.
You getting a gold watch?
We're getting 15, 10, and 5. I don't know what. I have no idea.
I think it's probably $10 for me.
I think it's like get a job, and I'm happy. I'm totally happy with that.
I know.
I'd rather.
I feel like we have the best jobs you could possibly have.
That's great. Yeah.
it's fun.
And working for a company of Taunton's stature is a privilege.
Yeah.
I really mean that. So this first question comes from Drew. Hello, Fine Homebuilding podcast. I'm currently halfway through a bathroom remodel in my 1940s masonry home in Richmond, Virginia. Because it's masonry construction, the exterior wall has no framing. My original plan was to attach treated 2x sleepers with Tapcons or SPAC screws, presumably to put the wall finish on, right? Mm-hmm. The one drawback I see with this is due to how rough the surface of the masonry is. It would be difficult to get the framing flat and plumb enough for tile. My second option, I think, would be to frame a conventional 2x wall with metal or wood studs, leaving an air gap between the masonry and the wall. If I use this method, should I insulate or use a vapor barrier? I love the podcast and would like to hear what you guys have to say.
Where do you say he is?
Drew,
Richmond, Virginia.
Drew is in Richmond, Virginia.
So we're calling that. Mostly. Is it a mixed climate or is that?
I think it's mostly cooling.
Cooling climate.
And I
Yeah.
think we can safely assume that it's going to be more cooling as time goes on.
Right, and the reason I ask for anybody who's curious is because that's
The
how
vapor drive.
You start to understand which way things are moving.
And for those of you listening out here, this what looks to be what are actually cinder blocks. Most people describe concrete block as cinder block, but this might actually be cinder block.
And the difference being,
Not really sure.
They're actually made with a large proportion of the aggregate being ash.
fly
Okay.
ash kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So I've actually painted walls like that before, and every time you hit a bubble of the cinders, they just burst through the paint and they make a big mess, and you just keep trying to paint over it and over it, and it just
What's happening? Is it like
It's like the cinders are just loose powder
Okay.
in
So
the
they're like,
surface of the block.
friable.
Yeah.
Interesting. Is this the only photo we have, Jeff?
This is the only photo we have. So, at Habitat, we would run into this, the homes I was rehabbing, pretty commonly. And, the way they dealt with this was they had a scratch coat and plaster on this wall, almost certainly, right? And that levels everything out, and then you can do anything. And it's probably vapor open, which made it pretty forgiving in this humid place, right?
Right. And I mean, so the photo we're looking at, anybody who's not looking at the photo is, like Patrick said, we're looking at a block wall essentially, but there's some remnants of existing studs or strapping or whatever that has been partially removed. That's something, I'm guessing this guy's working his way
Out.
from the inside out. So is it safe to assume from this photo that what he had was 2x on the flat?
I think that's probably what he had.
Okay.
I'm not sure of that, though.
1940s, so you think they would have had then lath over that and plaster on the inside? Or?
I mean, without knowing, 1940s, yeah, because even the early forms of drywall weren't really coming online until after the war, right? I'm not sure of my timing exactly, but I would think that in the 40s, it's a pretty good chance it's still plaster.
It could be anything from that period, right? That was really when we were trying to gear up our housing production, right? And people were trying all kinds of stuff.
It was really kind of switching. That's kind of the magic time where you really don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
I would. So the question here is like, how bad is the roof? How bumpy is the masonry? Like, how close can you get to it if you're going to build a wall in front of it?
I mean, if space isn't an issue, it certainly would be a lot easier to frame a wall, and it would be better for the wood to not be up against the masonry.
I mean, you're probably not going to want to buy 2x3s. In my experience, they're not very good lumber.
I'm going to suggest steel studs.
I was leaning that way too.
Yeah.
You can get pretty tight. You can get a pretty
Some
low
of them are
profile
like
wall.
inch and a half,
Yeah.
right?
And it's going to be dead straight, flat.
And I might be tempted to put foam behind that
Like rigid foam?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So make a continuous tape and everything,
Yep.
like you would do a basement, for instance?
Yeah, exactly.
Think about it. How often do you have the opportunity to put continuous interior foam behind your wall?
And that's going to stop the vapor drive when they're air conditioning too, right? It's not going to want to go that way because it can't.
Is it, I mean, if this is, did he say is it just brick all the way through? Or is there stucco on the outside or something?
He just says a masonry construction.
I'm just
exterior
curious,
wall.
I think it's brick
I mean,
because
like-
everything in Richmond is brick.
I mean, like, structural brick doesn't care if it gets wet. So,
And it's not cold enough for it to be a
freeze.
concern in the winter.
So would you just put up a vapor barrier on the inside? I don't see a downside, because the masonry can get wet and it can dry and it can get wet and get dry. And if it's not, unless there's like beams sitting in pockets, or
Well, I didn't see this question in advance. I'm guessing that there's probably
when has that ever stopped us?
There's probably a good case study on the building science collection from those walls that work. Or the
Let's paraphrase because we've had some masonry questions previously, and those are good places to start. So if you do have joists that are let into this masonry wall, that is a concern.
Big time.
Especially the colder the climate you are in.
Yes.
I think Richmond is probably on the safer end of the spectrum.
And just to explain why, because if you have wood touching concrete and the concrete gets wet, the wood gets wet.
Right.
And you're talking about the end of a piece of wood, so essentially a tree laying down on its side, and it's going to suck up water.
And it's also holding up your floor.
Right. It's also a difficult remodel repair.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And masonry walls need to dry, right? They take on water. But we can dry to the outside. We're assuming he doesn't have some kind of impermeable material on the outside. Then we would want to be more careful about that.
Right.
On the inside, I think stopping vapor drive is a good idea with a layer of insulation, but you're going to make the joist end colder when you insulate a masonry wall like this. So,
right. I don't know. I'm looking at the photo. I just feel like it's going to be beams sitting in pockets. Like, why would there be a structural load path that's a wooden wall?
it would be redundant, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you already have structural masonry, why would you not use that
to carry the floor.
to carry the load? And in that case, I'm getting a little more nervous about
How about
trying-
continuous mineral wool?
I mean, so basically what you're saying is you're weighing the risks of putting up an interior vapor barrier and which is a kind of a vapor closed assembly. It can only dry in one direction or both directions from the center out, or totally vapor open where you're kind of creating a forgiving environment where it can go either way.
I just like insulation on masonry because it's a cold surface,
Yes.
right? And we're talking about a bathroom which is going to have a lot of humidity.
Yes.
Stopping vapor drive is less of an issue in the shower because presumably there's going to be some kind of waterproofing material behind the tile, which is you don't want vapor going through your shower, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, for me, I would probably lean towards sheets of rigid foam, adhered and taped, and then a wall framed in front of it. But you're talking about adding a lot of space.
Thickness,
That's
yeah.
a lot of thickness.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
what minimum is, even if you go with Patrick's thin metal stud wall,
3 inches.
2 inches of foam and 1.5 inches of framing, and then another 1/2 inch of drywall, you're eating up some
room.
square footage.
But
Yeah.
this reminds me of a couple of conversations we've had recently, Patrick. Like that exterior stucco over that weird crawl space basement kind of thing, and then the one where the guy had brick veneer over a foundation that had that. What's that stuff you guys love with the asphalt in it? The
Insulbrick?
the
Celotex.
Celotex. The guy had the Celotex, and both
It's
times.
just like the hit
Yeah.
parade of bad materials.
Both times the people were like, "Oh, how can I cover this up?" And then we're just like, "Well, you kind of can't."
Patrick also loves the Porter Cable Bammer.
But I did find the document I was talking about on Building Science's website, and I'll put a link to it. It's called
What's the gist?
Interior Insulation Retrofits of Load-Bearing Masonry Walls in Cold Climates.
that's the
what
gist.
a title.
Yeah,
That's the gist.
So, but now I can't. I mean, I can't.
It's going to depend on climate and stuff.
I don't have the time to go through this whole document, but I will cite one sentence where it just says something about restoring moisture balance once you add layers to a wall like this. Hence, an interior insulation retrofit of a masonry building requires a careful assessment of wetting mechanisms.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to really,
Mechanisms.
yeah, you kind of have to really.
That sounds like passing the buck to me.
Well, there's more details in this document, and there's not enough time to go into all of them here.
So I think mineral wool somewhat solves that problem because it's so vapor open. But I mean, you have to have a vapor open wall
or
all
one
the way
of the
through.
more vapor permeable foams would be good, like a
EPS.
like EPS or an open cell spray foam, which is I think are both things that Joseph Seabrick's used at Building Science Corporation in walls like that.
You need to look up mass walls. That's where you're going to find details, is how to insulate a mass wall.
Yep.
And that way you can dig into by region, and it's going to give you a lot of different options. I'm sure spray foam is going to be a recommendation that's going to pop up.
If you have big overhangs, a lot of these problems are minimized because the wall is not getting wet, and we say that a lot.
Well, and I don't know if we've discussed this before, but on masonry walls with corbels and lintels and all these other like protruding details, what a lot of people don't realize is that those details are not strictly aesthetic. They're actually water-shedding details in many cases to prevent a lot of the water from being absorbed.
Look at old masonry buildings versus new ones, and you'll see what Rob's talking about.
Yeah, look back to when we used to know what we were doing.
Oh, this is good stuff, though. Question 2 comes from Austin. Hi, podcasters. This show keeps getting better and better. Progress is coming along on my 1930 Craftsman rebuild. I'm getting ready to frame the windows, Audis to accommodate exterior insulation, and I've been thinking about the flashing. I'll get right to it. Window flashing, tape or fluid applied, are all really expensive. I know a leak is more expensive, but it leaves me with a question. What are your thoughts on using something like Red Guard or liquid rubber as a liquid flashing? If liquid rubber works on foundation walls and Red Guard works in showers, why couldn't I use them to flash windows, a place where ideally there would be a lot less water exposure and no UV exposure? Let's even take it up a step. If I use Prosecco's, am I saying that right?
I've heard of this Prosecco, but I don't.
If I use Prosecco's Cat 5 WRB, why do I need the special liquid flashing around the windows? I get the gap filler. That makes sense. I'd love to hear the team's thoughts. I'm sure there's something I'm not thinking of. Can I start off right with this?
Sure.
So a tile waterproofing membrane is not subject to enormous temperature swings for starters. Like, you need stuff to be super elastic. That's not a job that a tile waterproofer has to do. So I'm just going to say that. That's reason enough to not do this.
So basically what it comes down to is that the products that are in a WRB are probably some of the most demanding conditions of anything in a house, and that's why they do serious testing and engineering of these things, and they're still working out the kinks.
And this is not a place where you take
experiment.
Chances. Never.
Yeah.
It's just like...
I mean, what's that stuff that you can like put a screen door on the bottom of a boat and then like spray that liquid rubber on?
That might be an exception, right?
But so, and I mean, certainly people are welcome to experiment with things, but it's not a good idea. But it's kind of like I was mentioning this earlier to you guys that I remember reading about the history of Tyvek, and the original Tyvek material, as far as I know, was actually a carpet underlayment. And some salesman who was selling this stuff had a bunch of rolls of it, like in his garage, and started selling it to people to use in place of tar paper on the side of houses. But
it was an air barrier, not a water resistive barrier in its original description.
Yeah, but the thing was that it was not designed to be exposed to UV rays. So the stuff fell apart because it wasn't built for that application.
Right.
So this is kind of a similar situation where it's a great idea, but there's a lot of variables that probably aren't being considered that could seriously jeopardize the situation.
I would just avoid mixing and matching. If there's one thing I feel like I've rammed my face up against this wall enough times over 20 years of doing this, is stick with one system. Just like pick something like Prosecco that has you covered all the way from start to finish with products that are made to work with each other, and go with it.
We heard this from those Brooklyn passive house builders too.
Yeah.
It's like, and if you have a problem down the road, they're gonna they're not gonna have an out. They're not gonna be able to say, well, you used this other thing with our stuff, and that's why it didn't work.
Yeah,
just pick a product line. Huber is another great one. Prosecco is a good one. Siga. What's the other your Tescon? What Proclima. Proclaim is another great one.
Yeah, and the thing is, sometimes you're dealing with situations where you're making transitions between walls of very different materials, like those masonry walls and those Brooklyn brownstones, where you may not have a product that can actually make that transition. But they were saying, yeah, if you're a small guy, an individual contractor or homeowner, and you need assistance dealing with a situation where two incompatible different companies' materials are failing, good luck. But if you have two materials that were specifically designed to be part of a system by the same company and they fail, it's on them.
Yeah.
Right.
And can we talk about our letter or our emailer, Austin?
Sure.
Well, this isn't the first time we've heard from Austin, you may have guessed, but can we see Austin's houses? So this is the house he bought, dude.
Oh, is that the one with the weird brick walls?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did he buy? That's what it looked like when he bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Show the other photos. So look, he tore all this nonsense off the
Oh, wow,
upstairs.
he's making progress.
Look at it. Let's see the inside, Jeff.
This guy's a
Wow.
non-pro.
Yeah.
It's ambitious.
This is the most hardcore DIYer I've met.
So this is
Hope
a
he's not
house.
living in it.
This is a house that had masonry load-bearing walls on the gable ends, and
Holding up a structural ridge.
And last time he was trying to figure out how to transition between the second floor framing of this new second floor addition.
And I think we all told him to just
Looks like he actually
tear it all down.
He actually notched the masonry framing to accept square second floor framing. That's pretty impressive.
And there's another photo. I don't know if I put it in here, but it shows his daughter up on a set of pipe staging.
So
She looked like she was about 5 years old.
So what's the WRB here to go from needs to transition from new zip system framing or zip system sheathing down to
Masonry.
brick with some sort of.
You hear that, Austin?
Parch
You're going to
coat?
have to let Justin know how you plan to make that transition. So,
That ain't gonna be easy.
well, you can't make that. You're never going to make the stucco waterproof, right? Unless
Right.
you put something in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer is not the cheapest answer, but the easy answer was take all your windows out and run a continuous layer of a
Strapping
WRB
or something.
and possibly exterior insulation even.
Yeah, I mean, you can use certain exterior installations as a WRB, and you could. I mean, that might be an appealing choice because you can float over. I mean, there's some big gaps between where wood meets masonry here. We're not talking like I'm going to put a piece of mesh tape and try and bridge the liquid WRB.
Maybe he's going to
between
put
it.
stucco on the upper part too,
Could be,
right?
maybe.
Maybe.
Austin, you go, man.
Yeah, impressive.
Really impressive. Where does he live?
That's what I was going to say. Maybe it doesn't rain there.
I don't remember.
Let us know, Austin. He sent me his address because his previous question, we didn't have the sticker program in place yet. So he's very excited.
Does his
to get a
last
sticker.
name start with a K? Is that guy?
I don't know.
Okay. Because I know we've had a lot of questions from him in the past.
He's awesome. Here we go. This is from Elizabeth in South Dakota. Hi, FHB crew. Thank you for churning out podcasts that engage my mind while I chase our little one around the house and plan a new custom home build. That's a fine compliment.
Nice.
My husband and I are working with a local builder, and I have confidence in his quality craftsmanship, so poorly installed EIFS is not a particular concern. Should we tell folks what EIFS is?
Exterior insulation finishing system. Is that what it stands for?
I think so. That's what I've always said.
It's like it's synthetic stucco system. You put foam up and then you put stucco over the foam.
Usually EPS, right? I think it's almost always EPS.
Yeah.
It was one of those things in the 70s and 80s where like it was all the rage, and then
Then there
years
were huge
later,
failures.
we realized that we rotted out all the framing underneath our windows.
Yeah.
But that, in fairness, the industry got together
Yeah.
and they made established details. And if you want to be a certified EIFS installer, you learn them and you have to be tested. And they fixed that.
It was a great way for use a lot in commercial if they want to create like these big kind of corbels and architectural details because it's just sticking up
You
foam.
see it on like affordable hotels all the time,
Well,
right?
even like the big chain stores,
Yes.
the facade.
Yeah.
If you look at that bumpy, plasticky, stucco-looking face of like your local Kohl's or Walmart,
Yep, that's EIFS.
the same material.
A big plus is you have this continuous layer of exterior insulation. I mean, I
Right.
think that's really what it's got most going for it.
Right.
Yeah.
She said, I would love for you to weigh in about the decision between EIFS and brick as exterior cladding in South Dakota, which is very cold this time of year and warm in the summer. Our goals are energy efficiency and durability. Is EIFS inherently more energy efficient, or could you just insulate behind the brick to keep the thermal mass from warming/cooling your interiors? Are there any other considerations in choosing between the two? She gets the issue here, right?
So what do you consider to be the downsides of EIFS? Like, when we haven't really talked about the massive failures.
Well, I mean, basically,
what happened?
As far as I know, it's just that they just didn't have really
bad
good
flashing.
flashing
Yeah.
details.
They
They just expected
it to be watertight.
The outside layer is impervious to water, but everything leaks. So if you don't have flashing, it's going to get
And
wet.
it dries slowly. So if you do have water intrusion, it like rots OSB till it's compost.
So now the idea of putting brick instead of EIFS, if she's thinking about insulation, seems more a matter of what is the outside finish. You're still going to do a layer of foam, I would imagine, maybe under the brick.
That's what she's asking.
Yeah.
She's saying
these can't be even close in terms of cost, right?
No. I
mean,
no, it's almost like you're building a whole nother wall,
Right.
if you're doing the brick.
I mean, for durability reasons, I would go brick every day of the week.
yeah, it's hard to argue with the longevity of brick as a cladding.
Just don't mistake your brick as anything else but an aesthetic
A veneer.
finish. That's it.
Yeah.
And you need an
Everything-
inch airspace behind it.
Yep.
And that's the thing people screw up is the mortar droppings get behind the brick. It can't dry.
Yep.
And then when it gets heated in the summer, and South Dakota is going to bake in the summer, right?
And then it's going to freeze in the winter.
And so when in the summertime, it's going to drive all that water interior. And if
Yep.
you don't have a good WRB, it's going to rot your walls.
Yep.
So, I mean, really, basically what it comes down to is that it's not a matter of is one system better than another. It's just get the details right.
Water management, right?
Well, it's like, forget about the brick for a minute. You need to build a ultra tight wall from a water perspective and air perspective. But in this case, what we're concerned about
mostly is water.
is water. And then the brick is just, putting the icing on the cake. The brick doesn't do anything except maybe screw you.
Yeah.
Well, it also
You don't have a good wall.
I mean, it also means you don't have to paint.
Well, yes.
It also is very durable in like high wind events too, right?
Yeah, I mean, EIFS, you can damage EIFS. Like
With a string trimmer.
A string trimmer was what's coming to my mind. A baseball,
Yeah.
playing kid, catch in the yard, whatever it is. A rock from the lawnmower. But
The bumper of a brand new BMW.
I just mean, it's it's icing on the cake. It's aesthetic. But meaning, yes, it does. It's an excellent protection layer. But if you think of it as your wall,
or as
you're in trouble.
waterproofing.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically its job is to look good and be a UV protected finish over your
More than UV, I mean, everything protected.
Yeah.
It is the muscle that's protecting your delicate control layers below it.
I'd like to
behind
point out a couple things. So this house is I would describe it prairie style, right? It's very long and horizontal.
Yep.
It has a hip roof with good overhangs on all elevations.
Yep.
That makes any one of these conversations that makes it more forgiving, right?
Yep.
And as long as you don't think of, as Justin said, the siding as your rain protection, you're going to have a good house.
Yep.
And oftentimes you see people slapping like a weird panel of like veneer cladding on a colonial style house, and you're like, why did they do that? But this is a case, one of these prairie style ranch houses where that sort of grounding brick layer down low, it visually does something for a space like that.
Well,
I mean,
it's so long and drawn out. You need some
Horizontally.
you need some weight at the bottom in a couple of places to make it give a little verticality.
It seems
Is that a
like
word?
seems like-
Verticality?
verticality. Seems like a nice
Verticalness.
balance though. So I mean, it seems like we're talking maybe a combination of EIFS and brick on a house like this, right?
Nah, I wouldn't.
No EIFS.
Well, why? I don't see the
No, and I'm just saying
The cost.
I'm just looking at their rendering, which shows sort of.
All right, but let's sorry to interrupt you, Rob, but let's say you have a wall where the bottom half is going to be brick and the top half is going to be something else.
Yep.
In your case, you guys are saying EIFS. So what am I doing behind there? Is the EIFS just completely decorative now? Like I don't care about it being foam because it's really just trying to get me a cheap cladding?
I don't know. I would talk to the EIFS company.
Because it's getting complicated.
It's
We're
getting
talking about
complicated.
transitions.
Yeah.
Now I have
between-
transitions.
yeah.
My insulation is only half the wall, maybe, or
So the probably answer to all the detailing questions is to talk to the manufacturer of the respective EIFS product you're using, and as Justin said earlier, make sure you're product offering has all the things you need. You don't want to be mixing and matching in this case either.
Right. I mean, the thing that worries me is, half of my wall by nature, EIFS has insulation, so half my wall is taken care of. I only have to worry about insulating the brick part, and now it's like, good luck getting everything tied together in a way that's gonna.
In short, Elizabeth, the answer is you can have exterior insulation behind foam. It has to be detailed correctly, but the same is true of the EIFS. So you could do either one. I think it's going to be dependent on your budget.
Right.
Lastly, so this is from Bud.
Bud?
And Bud is from Diamond Harbour, New Zealand.
Wow.
And I couldn't help but look up on the interweb what Diamond Harbour looks like, and it is gorgeous.
Is he like the farthest away listener that we've
I don't
got?
know, but boy, he's in the running. I think he's actually listening to us tomorrow.
Okay.
How's it looking tomorrow?
He says, I listen to your podcast every Tuesday on the other side of the dateline. I'm an American living in New Zealand for the past 17 years. Insulating housing down here was not widely done until around 1978. Consequently, many of the older homes have little or no insulation. Last year, the government made a bylaw that said all rental homes need to be insulated by this year, but everything I've read specifies ceiling and floor insulation, nothing about the walls. And it also says that you don't have to insulate if it's too hard to do. The homes were built on piles, no perimeter block or concrete foundation. It would seem to me that the walls would be more important to insulate than the floor. It would probably be nice to insulate the floor, but more importantly, the floor should have a vapor barrier. Guess how he spelled vapor?
With a U.
With a U in there, yes.
He's a convert, I guess.
Yeah.
He's American.
What do they call people who live in New Zealand? Isn't it like Kiwis or something?
Yeah,
or
Kiwis.
Is that what
And I think they referred to the country as Oz, right?
I don't know.
I think so.
Really? I thought it was
You
like,
have to anser that one. It's like,
I thought
look
it
at
was,
me like, I don't know about
I
that.
thought it was Middle Earth or something like that.
So I think there's a real easy explanation to this.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Let's hear it.
It's really easy to insulate an attic in most cases compared to walls or a floor. Like
see, yeah.
you got to rip down siding or the wall finish to insulate walls, whereas most attics have a floor you can insulate, right?
But I mean, what about the question of isn't it more important to do the walls versus the floor? I don't think so.
I don't
The
think
roof is always
necessarily.
the most important in heating climates, right?
Yeah.
I guess in cooling too.
People say, oh, well, heat rises. Well, hot air rises. But certainly an attic is probably going to be your first place to insulate if it's difficult to insulate the other places.
But I mean, having a cold floor is very uncomfortable.
Yes.
I think once again that's because it's easy to do, right?
Yeah.
You can go under these houses. They're open on the
I
sides.
would like to know what the criteria for you don't have to do it if it's too hard. Like,
How do you prove that?
yeah, everything's too hard.
Oh, like you pick up the bundle of cellulose. Oh, it's too heavy.
Yeah.
There are roofing nails sticking down.
Yeah. Nothing would
I don't
ever
know.
get done.
I mean, I definitely see his concern, but at the same time, like you said, if they're up on pilings and you have access to an attic, certainly it's the path of least resistance to insulate floors and attics. I mean, walls can get pretty complicated quick. So I'd say if they had well air sealed walls and did the attics and floors, that doesn't seem unreasonable.
I'd love to know what the typical weather is in Diamond Harbour, New Zealand. All the photos, it looks like the Caribbean. So,
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of information here about what are their walls built like and what's the average temperature.
So last night I emailed Bud, but since it was yesterday, he might not have got my email.
and with that,
But it's tomorrow now.
yeah.
So let's see, what's the weather in Diamond Harbor right now? It's 81 degrees.
It's summer, right? It just turned summer.
Okay, so it's safe to say that if it's December now,
Oh, no,
here, it's December there too. But I mean, it's December and it's winter here and it's 80 there. I think we got a pretty good idea of what the weather is.
It's summer.
Yeah. So they're working on a beach climate kind of a housing construction. I'm guessing.
God, it's gorgeous.
They're up on piers.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I had the wrong number. It was 55.
Oh.
It's 55.
Right now, let's see, Friday at 4 a.m. Oh, it's early, though.
It's yesterday.
What's the forecast for today, Rob?
That is today in New Zealand. It's highs in the 60s and 70s and lows in the 50s.
Rob's got a good weatherman voice.
But it's high summer right now.
Right.
Yeah. So it's
So
not,
it seems pretty temperate, right?
Seems
you
kinda
know, so here's
cool.
so here's
60s,
the thing.
70s?
Here's the thing. You can
For
never
summer?
base.
What are you talking about, Patrick?
It's very early summer.
I don't know.
Okay,
It
but
just, it just
above-
turned like summer days ago. I read about it in the New York Times.
I'm,
Right,
too,
yeah.
I'm too stupid for this
let
conversation.
me just say though, you know, we live in a part of the world where the weather swings pretty significantly, and you can't base your assumptions on other parts of the world. Like for instance, like in Iceland, which you think is super cold, it actually
It's super cold, Rob.
No. But
We've had this
it-
conversation.
in the dead of winter, when we've got like single digits, they're usually in the 30s up there because the wind and water currents are temper the climate
The
up there.
Gulf Stream.
Bomb
Yeah.
cyclone.
Bomb cyclone?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the best weather term out there.
Bombs.
Yeah.
What do you know about New Zealand, Jeff?
I feel like Jeff knows a lot somehow.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, no.
We need Matt, right? He's probably been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's like anywhere. Oh yeah, that place is amazing.
I mean, he might have just stopped there on like an army cargo plane or
Right.
something like
In
that.
general, I don't like to have an opinion on anything unless I hear what Matt has to say first. Like, I don't know what I think. I haven't talked to Matt.
he's pretty moderated on the podcast, but I like to
Oh,
get him going.
Oh, yeah, that's just like a fun thing around the office to get Matt fired up.
He turns red.
And you'll have people that listen are going to be shocked by that because he's so even.
Yeah.
But not so much when you start poking him.
I every morning I ask him about his ride in because there's so many jerks on the road around here,
Yeah.
right? And it's
And
like,
he's got
that's
a long drive,
He's
too.
got an hour.
He
plus
does.
Drive.
He just starts to turn red, like as if he's not breathing while he's ranting.
Yes.
You guys got to get that to happen on air.
Yeah. Okay. We got to come up with a plan,
Yeah.
Patrick, for next
All right.
time.
He's going to listen to this and he's
Oh.
going to resist.
So before we go, make sure we mention some of the IBS stuff here.
Go ahead. I forgot to put that on this script.
Okay. So it's what from when this airs, it's just about a little over a month till the International Builders
Couple of
Show
weeks.
in Vegas.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Only a couple of weeks. Okay. Which is on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And we will have a booth there. And we will also be at the Huber Outdoor booth. What do they call that? The something village?
They're just outside the show village. So,
Yeah.
so Fine Homebuilding is partnering with Huber this year, and we're doing some live demos. We're going to do window installation using tape products and window installation using liquid flashing products. So it will be like kind of two complete systems, and they're going to be happening. We're doing it with Jake Bruton and Ben Bogey, who are two excellent high-performance builders.
Amen.
And we're kind of pitting them against each other. Like they're going to be going back and forth a little bit like whose system's better,
Who has the bigger beard?
who has
we
the
get
bigger beard. Well, Jake doesn't have a beard. He's like well, I guess he has a little one, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, not compared to Ben, though.
Yeah, no, Ben has a beard.
But so are we going to get to like shoot at these windows with a fire hose to test out which one
Oh
is
man,
better?
that'd be
or-
awesome.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
seems feasible. But we're going to karate kick him. So we're doing that. We're also having a Keep Craft Alive fundraising party.
That's Wednesday, right?
I think that
It's our
sounds right.
second-
Wednesday, 6 to
Is it our
8:30.
second annual one? Or
Yep.
that
No, it's the third.
Oh, it's the third. Okay,
yeah.
that's right, third. So last year was a big success. It was a great learning experience for us, but it was also just a great chance to meet awesome builders from around the country.
Yeah.
It was super fun.
It was awesome, and we're going to have about twice as much square footage this year. It's at the Hard Rock, so make sure you guys come to that. You can find information through all of our social media channels and at keepcraftalive.org.
Will we have podcasts at the Builder Show too?
I think we're going to have probably half a dozen.
Sweet.
Yeah, and we're also going to be running around getting some cool video. Rob's going to be focused on that.
So we should tell folks who are listening who are going to be at the Builder Show to email the podcast email box and let us know, and maybe we'll have you on the show.
Yeah, we want to meet people.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I
Yeah, I
want to
mean-
hear I want to see some audience there.
Yeah, because the whole point of doing the live podcast is so that we can have people on the podcast that we don't get to have in our office.
Right.
Right.
And you'll still get a sticker.
Maybe.
They can get them for free at the booth.
Shh. Don't tell them that. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for Is that it? Were you?
Oh, one more thing. We'll have a link in.
But wait, there's more.
We'll have a link on the page too, because anybody who wants to can get a free pass courtesy of us to the show floor.
Anybody?
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
How's that work?
they want people there to see all the cool stuff. So that doesn't get you into all the seminars and all the other extra stuff, but to get onto the show floor, to see all the booths, all the great materials, all the tools, to come see us and say hi, we'll have a link and you can get your pass.
Cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. That saves some big money.
Yeah.
Now,
So back to being unfortunate, we have to.
Are you done now?
Sure.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Rob and Justin for joining me, and Jeff. And thanks to all of you for listening. Remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us wherever you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast.
That's it.
You going to say it?
Keep craft alive and happy building.